Hey, how's it going? My name is Michelle, if we do not have the pleasure yet of knowing each other. And I work as a soul translator as well as have Sensate Soul. And my work and service to you is supporting in elevating empathy, celebrating sensitivity, as well as working with empathic and sensitive entrepreneurs to get their gifts and loving work into the world. So today's video, we're going to be talking about, this is actually part one, and then I'm going to do a second part so that it's not too long. But in this video, we're going to be talking about responsibility and emotions. And I would like to offer some different perspectives, some things to try on, as well as a kind of flip of an old saying that I believe is really going to be empowering, and I experience it for myself as very empowering for myself as an empath and sensitive in the world, dealing with so many big things going on personally and collectively. There is, if you find yourself as an empath or sensitive, again, quick reminder, empaths are those who feel the emotions and energies, feelings, thoughts, sensations, inner world of others, other sentient beings, doesn't necessarily just need to be people, other sentient beings, and group energy and collective energy. We feel it within our own energetic and emotional system, and often it is a challenge, but also doesn't have to be, with more awareness, to differentiate and discern what is ours of our own inner world and emotional world, and what is that we are feeling and sensing from others. So this thing about empath and responsibility, or emotions and responsibility, is huge, because I have another video, please do watch that one, that came out recently about let's stop the mindset that we absorb other people's feelings and energies. But this is the reason I put that video out, and the reason why that's like one of the biggest things where it's like, oh, we've got to stop saying that, is because on a certain level physically it's actually not what's happening energetically, and also it's a bit of the bane of the existence of empaths and sensitives, where we feel like we are taking on the responsibility of everybody else's feelings and emotions. I've had a couple experiences lately, and things that are also going on in the world that I want to just touch on here a little bit to support what we're talking about. I've had an experience the last couple weeks with having to stand up and have some boundaries with some people that I care about. And those boundaries and expressing my feelings around something that has happened created a great stir, as it usually does when we do say to somebody, you know what, I'm feeling, what's going on, what you're saying, what you're doing is negatively impacting me, and I'm feeling emotional about it. And I'm expressing that. And it's usually then people will go into, if they have if they're not narcissistic or highly dissociated or defensive, they'll go into a place where they feel bad about what you're sharing, because nobody wants to hurt other people intentionally or inadvertently. But then there's also these other things that come after that, which are challenging. And that I'm going to speak about more in the second video, part 2 here. This first piece is about the emotions. Oh, excuse me, I'm just looking up. I live in the water here, and a bald eagle just flew by. That was super cool. So when I just totally distracted myself, didn't I? So with emotions and taking responsibility, it's almost like a default set point for empaths and sensitives to take the responsibility of other people's emotions. When I say it's a default set point, I'm not saying it's a natural one. I'm saying it's an unaware one, when we are not working within our centeredness and awareness and sensate awareness. Then it kind of becomes like the lazy, and sorry to use that word, that might be offensive to some, but it's it can become a self-sabotaging or a kind of the path of least resistance response or reaction to the world and to life around us, where we just kind of take on and take responsibility for other people's feelings without first checking, first of all, if they are ours. Second of all, why are we doing that? What are we trying to help, fix, save, avoid? That's another tougher one, by doing so. So there is an incredible opportunity for boundaries and learning about ourselves, how we tick, why we tend to do these things, and being able to change some of these habits of, just kind of taking responsibility for everybody else. The other side of this for empaths and sensitives is that we are often raised in environments and families, or as we get older, we're in relationships and situations where we start to kind of share more of our feelings and our senses and sensates, perceptions of things, our empathic resonance and perception of things. And we're told that we're crazy, or we're told, stop being so sensitive. Or we're, in essence, kind of like told that we're full of what, and that's not what's going on. And all of these things can add up to a really deep sense of self-doubt. And sometimes if you don't want to stand up for yourself and say, no, this is really true for me, and you don't want to create conflict, and you don't want to go into the possibility of having somebody else feel rejected by you when you stand up and say, no, that's not my experience. We can kind of slide into this path of least resistance and take responsibility for the other person's feelings and doubt our own perceptions. So with that, there is a tendency, that's where this place of, taking the responsibility for other people's feelings can happen, because we're doubting our own, and or we're not listening to ours and just not tending to ourselves, and for many reasons, a few that I have already mentioned. So with this, an incredibly empowering place for empaths and sensitives is to do the work and to be able to discern what is ours and what is somebody else's, and to stop taking responsibility for other people's feelings. I remember, I meant to say this earlier because it's kind of an important story, but here we go. Now I'm going to offer it. I remember when I first started exploring more of my inner world and my emotional world in my late teens. That's not when I actually first started, but let's say that's when I first started therapy, because that's what this is relating to. One of my first therapists told me this saying that really stuck for a long time, and it said, I think it's a classic saying, she didn't make it up, but it is, if you argue for your limitations, they're yours. And this has been a really big kind of, motto, internal motto, that I've used for a long time around, trying not to get into too much self-doubt. It's kind of like the Ford saying, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. Henry Ford, that is. It's that feeling of, if you argue for your limitations, they're yours. If you argue that you are responsible for everybody else's feelings, that's what you become. If you argue that you're too sensitive and you have the mindset that the world is a dangerous place because no one understands you, and then that's what your experience is. So, and there's many more examples of that. But what I've discovered is, through these experiences, and also through some things that are going on in society right now, particularly around women and political power and validating people's feelings and experiences, is that it's more it puts me more into a place of feeling open and empowered when I say, if I argue for your limitations, they become mine. So let me unpack that just a little bit. When I argue for somebody else's limitations, when I make exceptions about them, that, oh, well, they didn't mean to be rude, or they didn't mean to be unempathic, they didn't, all of those things, I'm taking their limitations and I'm making them mine. So this is a flip of that old statement, but for empath, it's a super empowering kind of statement, because when we do take on other people's limitations, when they are judging us, when they are being self-absorbed or not aware of how something is affecting us, when they simply don't have a very deep capacity for empathy, and we're wanting that from them, but they just don't have, they just aren't, we're taking their limitations and putting ourselves down and blaming ourselves, and possibly doing some inner damage around our self-confidence by accepting, taking on their limitations. So something to think about. Play with, how that lands for you, about how do you take on limitations of other people and make them your own, in the sense of, well, if they're not more, empathic or aware, that means I must be not worthy of that empathy or awareness and kindness. So that's one perspective. So here's another little twist on this saying. And you can use this, in times where you're trying to create more of a boundary and separate yourself from somebody else's insensitivity or disregard of your emotions and your feelings. So here it is. You can say to yourself, if you argue for your limitations, they're yours. Meaning, if somebody comes at you defensively about something that truly hurt your feelings or was insensitive, and they come at you with defensiveness, or they come at you with, disregarding or saying, that's not true, you're making this up, whatever the case may be, they're arguing for their limitation. They're saying, I'm not going to take any responsibility here. And that's on them. And that's when you know also the limits of that connection, or the limits of that friendship, or that relationship. It's not an excuse then to make the person wrong or bad. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is a healthy boundary of saying, I don't feel emotionally met. I don't feel seen and heard. I'm not going to take responsibility for your lack of empathy towards me. But what I am going to do is honor the limitation, know that this is information, and do what I need to do to take care of myself, not, without all of the blame and the shame and all those things that can come in. It's simply a limitation in that connection that you have with that person. It might be in the person, and it also might be in your ability or desire to connect with them, because maybe you don't feel safe emotionally with them. So that's one way to be able to create a boundary and not take on the blame, not take on the responsibility, and at the same time have a boundary that is coming from a place of self-compassion and also respect of the other person, and getting out of the expectations that they need to be different in order for you to feel good. Because the thing is, we can't change other people. They have to, we're all responsible to change ourselves when we see what is or isn't working, or when things are working in our lives or not working. It's always up to us to make that change that we want to see in the world, as another wonderful saying by Gandhi goes. So That is it for this week's video. I will be giving part 2 soon, so please do look for that, where we're going to be looking at more around defensiveness and the energy of it, and how to be able to discern when we need to protect ourselves, and also to bring about things that matter to us that take great risk and courage. And yes, I'm speaking to you, empathic entrepreneurs. All right, thanks so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Please do check out Sensate Soul, as well as Soul Translator, thesoultranslator.com, to stay in touch and to receive information that I only send privately through those emails, and also free stuff. And also, if you like this video and what I've shared here, please do like my channel and subscribe and leave me a comment. I'd love to have a conversation around this. And I'm really happy to support you in becoming the most empowered, empath, and sensitive and empathic entrepreneur that you dream possible. All right, take great care. I'll see you in the next video.